those of us who grow and spend most of our life in rural areas, in our villages, we know very well how significant this issue is. As you know, many of you know, AEIDL is an association that works in community-led local development for almost 40 years now. I am responsible for the rural territorial development thematic area of the organization. And today we're going to discuss essentially the results of several years of analytical and participatory support on gender dimension in rural areas and in agriculture. A lot of that coming from the grass ceiling project, but not only. And that's why we're doing that as ELIF, which is the European Local Innovation Forum, which is a community of 2,000 over 2,000 experts from all over Europe at different levels, institutional, civil society, and so on, that exist to exchange experience with one another and actually give us a bit of a more open format for discussion that is less constrained by the vagaries of EU projects inevitable. And that's actually Julen, our colleague, will explain that a bit in the future because it's something that you're most welcome to join in a number of activities we are doing throughout the year. Why are we meeting today? Well, as we all know, the 8th of March, the famous 8th of March, is the International Women's Day. There is also FAO, the agricultural organization, as Ilaria will mention, has declared this year the International Year of Women in Agriculture. And also on the 8th of March, the European Commission presented the much anticipated Women in Agriculture platform. So our activity today is quite timely because we need to see the elements that the gender equality strategy and the role of women in agricultural rural areas has been developed over the years, but also with the barriers like unequal access, under representation, limited visibility, and insufficient gender disaggregated rural data. Some of that, those of us who for personal reasons, very personal reasons, know directly know that this is an outstanding issue, even in the most developed countries. So today's session, we want to present a strategic direction that we have developed, a roadmap to advance gender equality in rural areas with actions between 2025, 2030, and 2035. And there's like a package of measures at European, national, and local level. Blanca will also introduce the Rural Gender Policy Toolkit, which includes a Rural Women Innovation Compass, which we believe is it was being done with a practical eye in mind to make it easy for decision makers, those who need to consider gender dimension in rural areas in a practical way to engage with it. They will have the expert dialogue. You see the agenda here. We will have colleagues from the Commission, Elena Schubert, which needs no presentation for those of us who work in these topics in Europe. Maura Farrell, academic coordinator of FLIARA Project, which is, again, needs no presentation if one is involved in these topics, as well as Ilaria Sisto from FAO, who will speak as well later. Then will be also discussion with the Rural Gender Toolkit, as I mentioned. And last but not least, there will be a discussion with the finalists of the Rural Women Innovation Award, organized by AEIDL, and last year in the first edition funded by Grass Ceiling. And we'll have the finalists of that award, because the idea was to identify good practices, not to have a single winner. So we are privileged that most of the finalists were able to join us today, and we'll have a discussion with them. But as I say, let me do a couple of comments on the general policy stuff before we get into business. I think it's important to frame where we are. This sounds very complex, but that's great, because that means that justifies the existing of people like Blanca or me, which is trying to make sense of all these developments. I think what we're just trying to point out here is the many developments that have been happening in terms of EU policies, funding for agriculture and rural development, and gender policies. Last year was a quite crucial year, and luckily enough, that coincided with the end of the grass ceiling project. So therefore, we have been able to many of the things have been developing has been timed with these major developments. Essentially, we have a new EU budget that is being discussed at the moment. We have a new vision for agricultural food. We have EU regeneration renewal strategy being also presented, the new European gender equality strategy as well. And therefore, the time is right to consider what can be done in practice to advance gender equality in rural areas. It's like we have this moment of singularity that will perhaps coalesce all these developments in various phases into one key moment that can perhaps provide a significant moment of change, of a structural change on the role of gender and women specifically in agricultural areas. And as I say, coincided just timely enough as well with the International Year of the Women Farmer 2026. I will just comment on specifics. One thing we would like to highlight, because in addition to the ELIF discussions we're having today in other projects, is the fact that the long-term vision for rural areas is a long-term strategy of the EU until 2040, and it has a clear flagship element on the promoting social resilience in women in rural areas. Not only that, AEDL is organized through the European Rural Pact, which is a community that exists across Europe, supported by the European Commission, a group on women in rural areas, and it's a very active group of 143 members. And at the moment, there is actually 29 live discussions. AEDL, I think in addition to the projects, we do a lot of things that are not from the projects, and we like to do that because we believe that projects are just a tool to achieve real change and to give us ideas that we can then share with others. And there's a significant package. Many of that I must highlight, developed or led by my colleague Blanca Casares, who will be taking the floor in a moment after Julen speaks. And that's I think we believe that there's many things that can be done that are not sufficiently exploited in terms of policy interventions, indicators, methodologies, and structures that perhaps could be optimized to advance the role of rural women in rural areas or gender equality in rural areas. And that's something that's very cared about. Our president, Marta, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, and what actually the chair of the Rural Women Innovation Award is particularly keen to do. This work has been co-produced through the European Policy Forum on Women in Rural Areas, which has been supported by the Grskovic project and will continue its existence as part of the group for women in rural areas. So demonstrate that the EU Rural Pact is a structure that can actually help develop ideas that, or continue ideas that were framed in a European funded project that ended. This project ended in December, but will actually enable us to continue, in addition to over and above things like initiatives like ELIF that AEDL is happy to do. Just a couple of boring slides, but that will perhaps frame a lot of the detail we discuss later. We are in a moment, as I say, of singularity. There's a significant review of the EU budget, and the EU budget is, in many countries, 90% of the public investment in rural areas. So therefore, it's not just a Brussels thing, it's something that will reverberate across Europe. As you know, there's a number of concerns about the implication of this significant reform, because essentially there's going to be a single envelope for a country, and that will put together existing programs that are now completely or rather separate. This is something that, of course, some people will observe with concern, but also provide opportunities precisely to avoid silos between funds and policies, EU and national, supporting gender equality, because gender equality is the classic example that is so diverse, so multifunctional, so intersectional, as it says, that tends to fall easily in between the gaps and the silos between policies. So this is an opportunity to rethink this. There's also new concepts like the right to stay that could be happening, that could actually provide a narrative for multifunctional, multisectoral policy interventions on gender equality. But also there are things that are still need to improve. For instance, we will see in a moment the partnership principle, the performance framework that is used to measure this progress. We have found in our research that could be improved. It's not bad what is being presented, but there's actually underexploited in our perspective. In addition to other initiatives like LEADER or this yet unclear 10% reserve for rural areas. One thing that is quite important, because you will see in your countries, in your regions, and here in Brussels, a lot of discussion about money, but we would like to focus is on results. The new EU performance regulation, which is a technocratic way of saying the EU needs to know what is being done in each country, particularly with EU funds, has a new dimension. This is that was proposed last July, like with the rest of the EU funding package that I mentioned. It's being discussed at the moment here in Brussels. But what I'd like to highlight, it has one of the dimensions that the Commission will ask member states to report and to be accountable for its gender equality. So that is already in itself, having that as a horizontal principle, a quite important thing. But we believe through the number of assessments we have carried out and we have shared with institutions and also with a lot of decision makers, EU and national, we need to have much more detail on the gender dimension. We have found there are indicators at European level that already can be used. There's not a problem. Oh, no, in some countries we have it, in other countries no. There's a number of things we have identified, Blanca in particular have identified, and that's something that could be still added to the current proposal on the performance framework, including gender-specific breakdowns that sometimes is rather easy to do and is not sufficiently clear there. And also more accountability for not just only gender outcomes, but also intersectional approaches that consider age, rurality, and socioeconomic status as well. I think there's a good base what being proposed, but could be improved. And not only that, I mean, there will be things that will be improved maybe in the coming months in discussions, and I hope there's some people in the ministries here attending today that will perhaps take inspiration from. But notwithstanding, even if the EU framework eventually doesn't change that much from what the Commission proposed, member states can still develop their indicators. And as you will see from Blanca, there will be a lot of tools that can actually do to actually make sure the gender is better reflected in the EU interventions and the domestic interventions as well. I think I will stop here because I always speak too much. And I'm happy to pass the floor to Julen, who will talk about ELIF.
Thank you so much for being here. And good morning to everyone. Thank you so much, Blanca, for the opportunity of being here today. I will basically explain you what is ELIF because it's here, it's the organizer, let's say, of this day. So in my next slide. Yeah. So what is ELIF? I guess that it's a question that you all are doing right now. ELIF, as Serafín has really well explained, it's an initiative of AEIDL, and it's an online space where we met different kind of type of stakeholders, experts, different organizations, operating all and connected at local level, both in the rural but also in urban areas. And we facilitate this exchange of ideas. For example, this day, it could be a perfect example of that. We learn from experiences, as we will hear in a couple of seconds, and we draw also lessons to boost innovation in local communities from and across Europe. In my next slide, you will see how we are structured. So till now, we have been working in 3 different thematic communities. We have the territorial development, in which we've put today's webinar, even if, of course, and we will see it's really related also with community-led social innovation. It can be, of course, related with environment and climate. And we work in these 3 structures that allows us to have more tailored webinars, more tailored documents and exchanges and activities. But also that doesn't mean that if you sign up for one of the thematic communities, you must be just there. Of course, we are completely open and we can access any of the activities made in any of the thematic communities. So here you have in this slide a bit of information of what we consider in this case territorial development, of which are the topics that we work within it. In community-led social innovation, it's about local actors who cooperate together to develop and implement new solutions to tackle problems that they have in their localities in this case. And environment and climate was a new thematic community that we launched last year in 2025. And with this one, we promote environment and climate actions across Europe. I will invite you to, I think some of my colleagues, they will be sending some messages in the chat with some links, and I will invite you to check especially this sub-page within the ELIF webpage, where you will see that last year we did 4 webinars in 4 different topics on environment and climate. And I think they are really relevant for today's session as well. So what we offer, no? Why to join this forum? Well, now everyone that is in this webinar today, it was already mentioned in the registration, but you are already part of ELIF, so it's as easy as it is. Basically, with the registration to any of our activities and webinars, you are already part of the forum, of the community. Of course, it's completely free, and it's also you have the freedom, let's say, to go whenever you want. But we hope that doesn't you don't leave us soon. Especially because we have many things that we really think that are interesting for you. So in this case, joining the forum puts you in touch with like-minded people. So as this webinar can be, we share ideas and solutions and to sort out many different kind of challenges. And so members, in this case, you will receive regular newsletters with relevant information and updates. Especially on upcoming events that I will talk also about that in my last slide, and developments that takes within the thematic communities and also within different projects in which we worked. Also, we have an activity that we started last year that it's called Expert Voices. It's this image that it's on the right part of the slide. In this one, we run interviews. I think it's more or less 2 per month to different ELIF community experts in different topics. So you are more than invited to express your interest to participate in this. All the information is available in our website. And yeah, for now, we are featuring both ELIF community experts and AEIDL experts. That's also the image that we have seen on Blanca's interview, really related with the topic and the matter that we are going to address today. So yeah, you are more than welcome to participate in this new initiative, which it's having so many and so good results, and it's really interesting to see what is going on from the local voices across Europe. As Serafín mentioned, we are more than 2,000 members right now. We are around 2,150. We have representation from more than 60 countries around the world, and we have representative from all new EU member states. And the thematic community, all of them, they work together to put some outputs together. For example, good practices, thematic articles, policy papers, interview, recommendations. So it's a vast forum in this case. And before I leave the floor, because I don't want to take more of your time for today's discussion, there are here some of the upcoming activities. So on the 18th of March, next week, we are going to have a Cerigo ELIF webinar. This is also something that we do quite often. So we take ELIF and our resources and tools and members' expertise, and we try to find featurings with different projects that we work. In this case, it's Cerigo. So we are going to have this webinar next week about aging together. It's called Aging Together. It's about aging in rural areas and how to involve older people in our societies with new solutions, with community-led initiatives. So we will be delighted if you attend. You have here a QR code that you can scan, and you will be redirected to the information page and registration page. And then we would like to feature also 2 of these Safe Habitus webinars. We think they are really relevant for today's topic, as Safe Habitus works mainly to develop the mental health, and they do a lot of research on mental health in rural areas. So you have one on the 24th of March on young farmers and the attractiveness. I think it's a really interesting topic of farming. You have also the information if you scan the QR code that appear in the image, and 2 days after they will have another webinar. It's a webinar series in this case that it's about understanding and strengthening the mental health services for Europe's farmers, which is completely aligned with today's matter. And that's been everything on my side. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you so much, Blanca and Serafín, for the organization and the invitation to do this interesting webinar. If you have any question, I guess that my colleagues, they have shared all the information in the chat. You have the links, and here you have also my email. So don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Blanca Casares Guillén, and I'm very pleased to be here with you today. Thank you for your time and for your interest in our results. Today, I will present some policy pathways to strengthen women's innovation in rural areas, drawing on the results of the Grass Ceiling Horizon Europe project, and as Serafín mentioned, in previous work or parallel work that we have been done in the last years. I will begin with the roadmap to advance gender equality in rural areas, which forms part of the project policy recommendations deliverable. To start, just to reflect a little bit, this slide illustrates an important pattern across the European Union. The three maps combine innovation performance, gender equality, and demographic change at the regional level. When we look at the three together, we can see a clear relationship. Regions with a higher level of gender equality tend to show a stronger innovation performance and are also more likely to experience population growth. Then having this in mind, for me, is always really important. Just to you understand how we have developed our recommendations, our roadmap that we present today. In this slide, I summarize the methodological process we follow to develop them. First, in the discovery phase, we review EU national policies and identify structural gaps, barriers, and gender inequalities affecting rural women's innovation. We also integrated key insights from the Grass Ceiling project, including data on rural women innovators, megatrends, and foresight on innovation futures, gender norms in AGRI, our living labs experience in 9 living labs across 9 countries in Europe, and of course the legal framework such as land transfer policies. Second, in a development phase, we work with experts and stakeholders through the European Policy Forum, and together with partners and living labs, we co-created ideas and identified emerging priorities and intervention areas. Third, in the assessment phase, we tested this proposal through participatory workshops in the European Policy Forum, gathering feedback from policymakers, researchers at EU level, at national level. We have had participation from all ministries of agriculture in Europe, and prioritizing actions in the short, medium, and long term, as I will present. And finally, in the proposal phase, we integrated all this validated insight into a policy roadmap and a set of structured recommendations aligned with EU priorities and policy frameworks. Our roadmap integrated in the deliverable, you can scan here, include 77 actions organized across 7 interconnected focus areas, which together address the main structural factors influencing women innovation and participation in rural economies. These focus areas include, first, legal and policy frameworks, ensuring that gender equality is integrated into rural and agricultural policies. Second, financial support and investment, improving access to funding and resources for women innovators. Third, inclusive data and gender-sensitive monitoring, which help make inequalities visible and measurable. And the roadmap also emphasizes innovation for inclusive rural transformation, knowledge exchange and capacity building, governance and participation, and finally, cultural norms and gender stereotypes, which often remain a major barrier. In addition to, just to have an idea what is included in this deliverable, in addition to the roadmap, the deliverable provides the policy context and evidence that underpin our recommendations, with an analysis of the EU and national policies related to gender equality, a vision and union for equality from the treaties to the current moment. All the evidence drawn in the Brazilian project through the living labs and the research work of other partners, and the identification of key barriers, emerging trends, but the more important, the solutions, the opportunities for women-led innovation in rural areas. But let's go to more detail the roadmap, how the roadmap is structured over time. The actions, the 77 actions that we clustered in the different focus areas are organized in 3 time horizons, 2025, 2030, and 2035. It means short, medium, and long-term policy priorities. All our recommendations has, for example, we can start with the first, establish Women in Agricultural platform, because it was announced in the Vision for Agriculture and Food as an action. Then we reflected our policy needs, identified, and this opportunity that was already announced in the Vision, and that has been launched, as we know, on the 8th of March by the Commission. Then all our action has a clear path to be achieved, and who is also the main actors involved. For 2025, the focus of our actions proposed are mainly foundational actions, strengthening policy frameworks, improving gender mainstreaming in EU programs such as the Common Agricultural Policy, building better data and monitoring systems, and creating target support for rural women. By 2030, the roadmaps moves toward implementation and scaling, including integrating gender variables into monitoring systems, supporting innovation platforms, rural innovation labs, or strengthening mechanisms of governance. And looking ahead in 2035 is more a systemic transformation, embedding gender equality in rural governance, strengthening social and digital infrastructure, institutionalizing living labs, peer innovation models, and addressing persistent cultural barriers and stereotypes. This slide shows, in addition to the deliverable and the full document where you can explore all these actions in detail, we also build, and we will present later in the second presentation, a demonstrator, an online tool that allow the user to explore, to filter by the different focus areas, the different milestones, and you can visit all these actions. Then I will just to say that thanks to this interactive format, the users can make use of the roadmap in a more practical way, and is foreseen for being used by policymakers, national level, regional level, advisors, but also practitioners. Which are the policy opportunities to strengthen innovation ecosystem for women in rural areas? In addition to all these details, actions, first we see the need to align with major EU frameworks, including the EU Vision for Agriculture and Food, the Roadmap for Women's Rights, and the Long-Term Vision for Rural Areas. In the Common Agricultural Policy, there are 2 important paths. For one side, the amendment of the current CAP strategic plans that still a member state can do, and based on the simplification, it can be even 2 times per year, redesigning some CAP intervention, reallocating budget, and for sure, several of our recommendations goes to the next programming period, 2028-2034, with the upcoming National Regional Partnership Plan and the new performance framework. Then we have specific recommendations for the design of upcoming interventions and how to measure results. But we also see a lot of space for national, regional actors through the transposition of the European Gender Strategy post-2025 into strategies on brain drain, the population, just transition, smart rural, generational renewal. If member states has this kind of strategies or are going to develop, this gender perspective is crucial for this thematic, and also in the national social climate plans. And in concrete, for the next round of EU funds, the national and regional partnership plans, first, it is important to strengthen gender mainstreaming, for example, by requiring in all plans to include a dedicated gender chapter and assessment. Second, the plan should ensure a clear rural gender focus, integrating gender considerations across all measures, interventions. Third, we propose a target support for women in agriculture and rural entrepreneurship, including air market funding and strengthening instruments to support women innovators and also new entrants in the agrarian sector. Fourth, improving indicators and gender disaggregated data is essential to better monitor progress and make gender gaps visible. You will find in the deliverable all details, proposal for indicators, and so on. And finally, inclusive governance and participation to ensure women representation in monitoring committees, decision-making bodies. Just to finalize, thank you so much. We are now going to move to a expert discussion that is going to be moderated by Serafín. And I pass the floor to him.
Thank you. I will just for the purposes of letting Blanca catch her breath. The roadmap is essentially a quite ambitious program, but ambitious yet realistic. A lot of the things we've been helping Blanca on this is basically adopting the skeptical view, because there's a lot of skeptics, and I think the resulting work reflects that, to make sure that the measures that are proposed actually can be implemented, not just wishful thinking. But it's, in essence, what the roadmap does is doing a lot of homework for the governments and so on, but also for the Commission. So, notwithstanding that, because of that, I think I would like to give the floor to Elena Schubert, who is, as I say, for many of us well known, as she's a key person in this discussion, as key person in the AGRI for gender matters, and as part of the social sustainability unit. For disclosure, it's not new to Grass Ceiling, has been participating in our forum session many times at the final conference. And one of the reasons we decided to do this session now online is because the final conference, where a lot of these things we discussed, was in person, but wanted to make sure that as many people could engage with these ideas as possible. So without further ado, and I appreciated the difficult moment for an official that it is, because of the current discussions on the MFF and a lot of wider things. I would like to have your reflection about what do you think about the roadmap, whether it's something that can be used, and perhaps what is missing in implementation of current policies. The current one comes to your plans, but also any reflection you can reasonably do given your constraints about the future. So open question, the floor is yours, Elena. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you to organizers of this event. You are so hardworking, doing all these events, doing all this research, and getting all these findings that are so precious for all of us, and particularly for us in the Commission, who are the policymakers, and we look for inspiration and your ideas. And without your work, we would not be able to move further. And I really mean it. I mean, this is absolutely essential. I'm always so impressed by the presentations today, and it makes it difficult for me because you have already referred to all the points that I prepared for my presentation. So I don't know. On the other hand, I'm not going to take so much time, and I will not speak so long because you have been so exhaustive in your presentations. So first of all, the current programming period we have discussed at length already many times. The question that Blanca sent to me that I should respond to is what is missing in the implementation of CAP strategic plans, and not only in terms of policy design. Well, first of all, I have to say that the current programming period is definitely for many of you, and rightly so, because this is your role to criticize the Commission, not ambitious enough. But from the point of view of the Commission, we have made a big step forward because we now have this specific reference to gender equality under specific objective H. And also we have introduced possibilities for member states to design interventions that force positive discrimination in line with the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which is clearly says that we can and we are allowed to put forward positive discrimination interventions for women or for underrepresented sex. In this case, it is women, where we have clear evidence that they are underrepresented. And this is unfortunately the case in farming and agriculture. What is missing? Well, we have 2 member states that went this step forward and introduced possibilities for member states to provide enhanced funding for women farmers under specific objective G, young farmers, and this is Ireland and Spain. And this is very welcome. What is missing from my point of view is that I don't find it ambitious enough that only these 2 member states have done so. I would have wished that more member states obviously go for this, and they didn't. So we are now really analyzing it also with the view of the new MFF. What can we do better so that we get more member states on board in terms of positive discrimination measures for women? This is the first thing. The second thing is that we have, just to be very clear, we have seen that in the current programming period under CAP, we have been very ambitious in terms of environmental rules, environmental standards. We have pushed member states to do more. And we have seen that there have been a lot of protests from the side of farmers who complained that the Commission is putting a lot of administrative burden on them and a lot of regulatory burden, and that we have to cut red tape. We have also had a strategic dialogue on the future for agriculture. It was chaired by Professor Strohschneider, and we mobilized a wide number of stakeholders and networks, basically representing all the players in the food chain, and they came to the conclusion that we have to give more power and more decision-making competencies to member states, to regional level, to local level. Basically that we have to be more aligned with subsidiarity. We should give the power decision-making there where it belongs, to regions, to local actors, to farmers. So now this is the balance that we have to strike. On one hand, we want to have level playing field. We want member states to implement up to certain standards. On the other hand, and I can relate to that, the ones who live the consequences of the policies, they should be able to be included in decision making. So how far do you go to commit member states or to make them to implement certain policies. For example, as the topic of the seminar, gender equality policies. So how we are going to go about that? I would think, according to the research, I mean, the project FLIARA, grass seeding, SWIFT, but also OECD study on women in farming and many other studies from abroad also. We have been exchanged also with colleagues in Canada, for example, in the United States. And what is the main takeaway from me? If somebody would ask me, you know, I have also participated in a podcast with Maura and with Sally Shorto at the occasion of the Women in Farming platform. I'll come to that later. But the main takeaway, what we have to do to get more gender equality in CAP, and not only in CAP, in general in the society. And I think the point is to have more women in decision-making positions. Because if you decide, you feel empowered, you are part of it, you have the visibility, and you do the policies also from your women lenses, from gender-sensitive lenses. So what we currently did is that we encouraged member states to get more women into decision-making, for example, in LEADER, because LEADER is the powerful tool in rural areas where you have a lot of actors on board, where you want to change something. This is what we did. And majority member states did it. They introduced a requirement that at least 50% of women must be in leader decision-making bodies. But this is not enough. We need more women in cooperatives. We need more women in food processing industry. We need more women on board as farm managers and so on. So under the next MFF, that is going to be, as you said it, and I don't need to explain to you because your presentations were exhaustive in this regard, we are going to have this single fund approach, NRPP's regulation, where we are going to, and under CAP strength of the next MFF, we introduce the provision that there must be some specific support for underrepresented groups, and we specifically referred to women. And we also introduced the farm relief services, which I think is also a very positive article when it comes to gender equality. But that is obviously not enough. So we are now working together with central services, DG Budget and DG Justice, on guidance on how to implement gender equality as a horizontal principle under the performance regulation. You have already referred to performance regulation. I don't want to repeat myself, but what the fact is that this performance regulation is basically following the single gender tracking methodology. Single tracking methodology that has been inspired by the OECD example. You are experts, you know it very well. We are going to have three scores, score 0, 1, and 2. 2 will be for the activities that where gender equality is a general principle, as a principal objective. Score 1 will be attached to activities where gender equality is an important objective, but not the main objective. And 0.2 will be attached to the objective where we anticipated no impact on gender equality. So it will be tracked. And you know very well as practitioners, as researchers, that these data that will be applied horizontally for all interventions under NRPPC will, of course, provide a very clear picture about how much money goes to women, because this is basically what is it about. So we are already, as DG AGRI, for CAP strategic plans, applying this methodology. I can tell you, for example, now 15% of CAP budget goes to women. And when we think about that, there are around 1/3 or less, roughly 1/3 of women are farm holders, farm managers, or the heads of agricultural holdings, then we see that only 50% of the CAP money goes there. So there is this disproportion. And why? Because women are running smaller farms, in average 9 hectares, men around 21 hectares farm. So what is missing in the implementation of CAP strategic plans? Well, I tell you what is missing. The whole mindset is missing. The problem is in the culture of this sector. we have these traditional ways of thinking there. We have the farms are usually run by men, and they are being also passed from generation of fathers to their sons. This is what is happening, and we need to change that. So I've talked about the legislation, I have talked about the budget tracking, but this is obviously not enough. So what we have to do, well, we have to change the mindset. We have to give more support to women. And this will not happen only when Brussels does something. We need to have a broader support for that. This is why we are now also launching or have launched already a Women in Farming platform. I will send a link into the chat. It has been launched on 8th of March, so Sunday, last Sunday. The call for application is open until 30th of April. We are inviting all women farmers, all women active in agriculture and agriculture-related field. We are also inviting men, because I believe that men are part of the solution, a big part of the solution. We need to have the men on board, and I hope that we will be able to mobilize a very broad spectrum of women who are active in the agriculture and agriculture-related field, and I hope that we will be able to make a change. The central activity of this platform will be dedicated to mentoring. We believe that we need to mentor, to provide support to women who are aspiring to become farmers or who are already farmers but struggle and need inspiration and support from others, experienced women, but also experienced men farmers. I mean, we are open to men also to give advice, but also to young men who would like to contribute. But the principal objective is indeed to enhance the participation of women in farming through the mentoring schemes, but also through capacity building, through exchange, through connecting, through discussing, through creating, sort of a safety net, right, at the EU level. And we hope that this safety net at the EU level will also inspire or will trigger the creation of networks at member states level, networks of mentors, where because national contexts are different, we cannot, the same what applies in Ireland or in Spain or in Slovakia does not apply in Lithuania or Latvia. So we need to have these national networks of women. This is, the platform should be the kind of start and kickoff of the national networks where women farmers and women active in agricultural field get together and support women in their member state. So let's make something out of it. I mean, I'm really excited about it. I don't know if you have seen in social media, we have been doing some PR activities around that. So far, we have only 42 applications, but I would really like to use the opportunity today to encourage all women and men, please apply, join the platform, and then we will see, that let's see it as a start of some new movement for women in agriculture and farming, that we can do something about it. And I have heard also some negative voice that this will be yet another initiative which doesn't bring anything, we're just discussing and it will not. Let's really do something genuine about it. And the good thing about the platform will be that it will be very open and we can discuss together and move it from there. And I'll be very happy to see your idea. So on this point, I would stop my intervention and I am happy to respond to your questions and of course, happy to follow this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena, very, very much. I think we're going to go straight to Maura, but if you can stay and we can have a bit of a discussion later. But I was just thinking that, with the 2,000 people we got in the ELIF membership, the 80 or so we have in the female agriculture framework, the gender dimension, the gender community in the rural pact that we also facilitate, I think pretty much that will have more than the 60 that you have already. So I think that's I think you have the embarrassment of choice, and that's actually the best thing we can have. But let's move on. I think you've been quite honest about what can be done, what still be done, and what is in the way of being happening. But I think let's have a more strategic look, and for that, I'm pleased to welcome again. It's not the first time, and it's always a great pleasure to have Dr. Maura Farrell, Associate Professor at the University of Galway, and lead coordinator of the recently concluded FLIARA Project on female-led innovation in agricultural areas, sister project Grass Sealing, and other activities. So just a general question, because you have had a conversation in other instances. What is based on your research or what you have heard so far, what are the main barriers for women women innovators in rural areas? The obvious ones, but perhaps, and that's the advantage of FLIARA, the less obvious ones. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Great. Serafín, thank you very much. And thank you first for having me here. I think we can never, use our voices enough to bring forward the message. I also want to thank Elena, I think, and the team at the European Commission. I think when the highest voices carry a message, I think the message gets through and it gets down. And, we would love to be able to idealistically say that every country, every region, every area across Europe will carry this message without a little bit of pressure. And I think sometimes when the pressure comes from the top, I think things change. And it is wonderful to see people like Elena in the Commission who have driven this agenda, and it has really become something that it's at the heart of their thinking and their ethos. And I think that it has paved a really easier path for us. And I think now, as I look across the International Year of the Women in Farming, I see a vibrancy, I see a change, I see a new narrative that I have never seen before. And I have been working in this area for over 20 years. And I see a change now. I remember going back 10 years ago, asking somebody in my own Department of Agriculture to speak on women in agriculture. And they looked at me like as if I had just landed from another planet. Whereas we had an event in Ireland last week, there's events all over the country over the next year. And I think that for me is amazing. And that's one of the things and one of the ways that we're overcoming the challenges that women have. Let me paint a little bit of a picture. And I think we have now so many people speaking about agriculture, women in agriculture, women innovators. We can never speak enough about it. But when we start talking about the challenges, a little click in our brain goes, oh yeah, we know, those are the challenges. But I think sometimes if you paint the challenges as the picture, and when we talk about stereotyping and bias, and you talk about these people who have farmed, my grandparents, my grandmothers, both of them farmed. They were farmers all their lives. Were they recognized as farmers? Were they considered as farmers? No, they weren't. They were considered as wives. They were considered as stay-at-home mothers. They were considered as people who helped out, who stood in the gap. These were people who did this. These were not farmers. This is one of, first of all, the biggest challenges that we need to overcome. We need to recognize women as farmers. This is their career. This is what they do. But if we don't overcome the stereotyping and the bias, then as Elena said, we don't get the visibility. And if you don't get the visibility, then you don't get the women at the table. And this is where all of the challenges are. The women are not recognized as farmers. They're not recognized as innovators. They're not recognized as entrepreneurs in rural areas, because who do we see there? We generally see men that are there in those positions and within those pictures. And if you don't see women in places, if they don't have a visibility in those places, then they are not invited onto that committee. They are not invited into that organization. And when they are not invited in, then the stereotyping, the bias will continue. And the challenge is right from the beginning, we need to overcome that stereotyping. We need to see the woman as the farmer. We need to see the woman as the entrepreneur, if that's what she wants to be. So when you have the stereotyping and the bias, then there's a spin-off of all of those challenges. And the challenges continue. So if you have a woman who wants to start up a small business in a rural area, first of all, she's not recognized as a business person. She's not recognized as an entrepreneur. She's not recognized as a farmer. So straight away, she has blocks in front of her. She has constraints. She has challenges. If she says, I need a little bit of money for this, then the constraints and the challenges are right there in front of her. They're right there in front of her with banks, with credit facilities, with all of these people and places that stop her gaining access to what she needs. They stop her gaining those resources that she needs. And those are some of the biggest challenges. And we talk all the time about the lack of finance, the lack of resources, the lack of navigating the bureaucratic matters that are there in front of these women. But what does it mean? In FLIARA, this is what we've seen. We've seen, first of all, the woman who decides, I just want a small little business. I want to start up something on my farm. I want to diversify my farm. I don't need much. I just need a little bit of money. And she goes to her local credit union or she goes to her local bank. And first of all, they look at her and they see, well, what's the risk in investing in this woman? What are the risks for us as a credit facility or as a bank? And straight away, the stereotyping comes back in. Women are not entrepreneurs. Women are not innovators. So it's a high risk for us to invest in this woman. So straight away, she faces that financial blockage straight away. And if she is, and again, in the FLIARA project, I interviewed these women myself, women who were told at a credit facility, do you know what, if you come back and say you're trying to buy a car or you're trying to invest in your home, do you know what, we will give you the money then. But do not come to us telling us you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to start up a business because we may not give you that money. That is a challenge. That is a constraint. That is a block. What about that woman who then decides, okay, I've started this business. Do you know what? I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to look at the vision that's out there. Does she get scaled up money? Does she get assistance and help by scaling up that business? No, there's a constraint again. There's a block again because she's seen as a risk. What about this woman who wants maybe to do this diversification on her farm? She wants to diversify the farm, but the farm is not in her name. The herd number, as we say in Ireland, is held by her husband. So then we have a constraint again. We have a block again because she doesn't have access to that land. These women do not have access to the land. I spoke to a lovely, lovely young girl in Ireland who wanted to start up a business on her farm. And this was her home farm. She wanted to start up this business and she wanted to start up an equine business. 1 acre of land. That was the land that she was allowed to get to do this business. This lovely young girl who had a vision of starting the business. The access to land was her problem. Women now, even if you were a new entrant into agriculture, if you were somebody who wanted to strive for a whole new idea of an entrepreneurship, access to land is a huge, huge issue. What about this woman who then decides, okay, maybe I've gained this access to land, I've gained a little bit of finance, maybe I need some new education in this area. Yes, across all of our countries, education is something that is so freely available. It's wonderful. We can access most of the women we talk to in FLIARA. We're highly educated women. But when we look at training for entrepreneurship or agriculture, it's a very specific type of training. Is it available to women? Our advisory services open to women. Our advisory services right across Europe, are they open to women? We look at the wonderful advances we have in agricultural knowledge innovation systems, ACAS. I interviewed women who didn't know what ACAS was. Is this a challenge for women? Of course. Are there advisors right across Europe at the moment who still want to go onto that farm and say, I want to talk to the farmer? And the farmer is the man. The farmer is the male. So what's the challenge here? What's the constraint here? The challenge here is that they do not have access to those advisory services. They do not have access to that training that specified specific training that women need if they want to advance, scale, diversify that farm, if they want to set up that business. We found in FLIARA that one of the key aspects that women were involved in, if they set up a business right across Europe, irrespective of what that business was, their environmental ethos was absolutely huge. That environmental ethos is something that we are striving for across Europe, striving for in the CAP. These are a group of people working within that circle who have an environmental ethos. But if they are not allowed into those circles of advisory services, of training and facilitation, then that ethos method or ethos methodology of environmentalism is lost within those women. Let's look at the broader picture of our infrastructure in rural areas. And we always talk, anybody who talks about the rural will talk about our services, our facilities, our infrastructure that is not as good as we need it to be, is not as good as our urban counterparts. How is this a constraint, a challenge, or a block for women? Hugely. Who are the carers? Who are the carers, not just of childcare in many, many of our countries, but the elderly care? Women. Women are those carers. And if we do not have those facilities and those childcare facilities or those elder care facilities, those roles are left up to women. If you want to be a farmer and you need to farm at 7 o'clock in the morning, or you need to farm at 8 o'clock in the evening, those childcare facilities or elder care facilities are not available to you within those times. What about transport? Transport is another infrastructure that can be a huge constraint, challenge, and block for women who want to become entrepreneurs. Again, a lot I spoke to who had a lovely farm diversification business in the west of Ireland said that she had fantastic business, but her big block was that bus did not come to her facility. That bus did not come to her. Again, that infrastructure of transport is a huge, huge problem for those women. Another issue that we really look at as the challenge, and Elena alluded to this, if we do not have women sitting at the table, then we do not have women within those key issues that we have at the moment. We have a huge generational renewal issue within many, many farms right across Europe, not just here in Ireland, but many farms right across Europe. We have elderly farmers still taking the mantle when it comes to agriculture. We are blocking women coming into the system. But where is the blockage? Where is the challenge? Generational renewal right across Europe at the moment has programs, has projects, has everything going on. How many women are involved in those programs, those projects? How many women are at the table when it comes to the generational renewal conversation? How many women are invited into those training programs? Not too many. Again, if we want to solve the generational renewal problem and we want young women to get involved in farming, we need them in the projects and the programs. And if they are challenged and constrained by even being invited into those programs, then how can we see them as an answer to generational renewal? Again, looking at more of those challenges, and we've seen the finance, we've seen the access to land, we've seen the training, we've seen the poor infrastructure, we've seen the stereotyping, we've seen the bias that's there. These are the challenges. The bureaucracy. I think sometimes when I think of AI, I think straight away of women. Because one of the biggest challenges that women spoke about when we talked about them was the time factor that they have. Their time is spread and it is pulled by many, many entities in their lives. Let that be an entity in and around childcare. Let that be an entity in and around education or training. Time is a huge factor for these women. When I look at AI now, I see AI for me as a woman as a time breaker. This is something that can save my time. Are we training women within this capacity? Are we showing them how this AI can assist and break down those time barriers for them? That's the kind of training we need for these women. That's the kind of instructions. That's the kind of overcoming the challenges that we need. We need to see what's in there into the future. We looked at a foresight analysis within the FLIARA problems and the FLIARA project that we had. And again, time kept coming up all of the time. This idea, do women have this time? We speak about the LEADER program, and I am one of the greatest proponents of the LEADER program across Europe. I think it is the best thing that we have ever had, a stability within the rural areas. Does women have the time to overcome the bureaucracy that is involved in making a LEADER application? No. It's time. Time is a huge challenge and a factor for women. Everything we can do to overcome that is hugely important. So the challenges are there. I don't think I need to tell anybody about the challenges. We have so much research done now that tell us about the challenges. But you must make the challenges real. You must see how the challenges are blocking the average young woman that is on a farm, trying to become an entrepreneur, trying to become a farmer. And until we actually see that real challenge and how that real challenges impacts that woman, then we cannot overcome them. We have always said, and I'll finish with this, we've always said in the FLIARA program that we need to bring forward the best of women. And the best of women is what they can add to what is there at the moment. And what I am fearful at the moment is the power of what is happening now, the power of the message that is going forward, the power of the international women in women farmers. My hope is this will change the narrative. My fear is that we do not allow people, men, farmers, organizations out there to take a step back away and say, ooh, I'm a little bit fearful of this movement of women that's there now. We need to show them that women are an advantage to the bigger problem. Women are somebody that can assist, help, get us over the challenges that are there. Women are not a threat in any way here. Again, the women that we interviewed right across Europe, they said they could not do the job that they do without the fathers, the brothers, the men that are there with them in farming. So women are no threat here. Women are an answer to the problems we have within Europe and the problems that we have in agriculture and the problems that we have in rural areas. They do have challenges, they do have constraints, and we need to overcome them. And I will leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's difficult to follow up from that impressive contribution. Just to say that for some of us, what you just said is very deeply personal because you're almost naming specific people very close to us. And therefore, I think very much encourage colleagues to also look at the results of the FLIARA project, as we do and we did when we were doing our work and will be continue doing over this year. Being aware of the time, I would like to give the floor directly to Ilaria Sisto, who is Gender and Development Officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization at the United Nations, working on issues like gender mainstreaming, capacity development, sustainability, about a bit your commentary on what you have heard so far, but also activities you are doing at the moment, and of course, inevitably, the International Year of Women Farmers, which is to this year, 2026. So without further ado, Ilaria, the floor is yours.
Shall I speak about the International Year of Women Farmer?
You can no. I mean, I would just conflate both questions, and you might
okay.
you exactly. Yeah, thank you. My apologies.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And first of all, I'm very glad that the two speakers before me mentioned many of the things that I would like also to mention. First of all, FAO has published a couple of years ago the report on the status of women in agri-food system. And this was 10 years after the previous report on the status of women in agriculture. In this report on agri-food system, we wanted to consider the role of women not only in agriculture, but also in off-farm activities. So take into account where the work related to processing, trading, and many other tasks. And we realized that actually, unfortunately, the situation of women in some areas, in a few areas, I would say, has improved, but in many others, the situation is still very, very difficult. Also, if we look into the rural policy that are addressing the gender issue, we realize that very often gender consideration were overlooked in many of the agricultural policies. And in this case, for example, they didn't consider the workloads of women, they didn't consider their knowledge, they didn't consider their specific constraints. And this has resulted in a reduced effectiveness and sustainability of the policy and development programs. We have seen that some progress was made, but many challenges still remain. And this includes mainly issues related to the legal barriers. My colleague before me mentioned the fact that there are still very often discriminatory social norms. Another big issue that I think we should mention and highlight a little bit more is about the limited institutional capacity, and also the fact that data very often and the evidence is not really always available. And this can really reduce the impact of our intervention and our policy and our strategy on women, and reduce the participation and the benefits they can have. When we analyze more in details, what are the causes of this poor impact of our policy, is that very often there is a weak alignment of the policies with national strategies. And this requires that we improve our coordination and that we use more inclusive approaches. We also see that a big issue, I've been working in FAO for over 30 years, and you can see how old I am. And you go to countries and they say, oh, here is my policy, here's my strategy, here's my action plan. But then very often there is very poor mechanism for enforcing these gender-related laws and strategy. Also, as I mentioned before, there is a weak gender expertise of the institution. The data is missing to monitor really what is the impact of our policy. And very often the fact that women are not participating enough in policy making and decision making. For example, FAO is very involved also in the work on climate. And when you look at all this convention on climate, we have calculated not only how many women are participating in the delegation that attend this international forum, but also how much time women are allowed to speak at the negotiation table. And then you realize that actually the issue is a big concern, because they can participate, but then they cannot really have enough power to participate in the negotiation and have their voice being heard. Something that I would like also to mention is that we have developed a tool that is called the GAPO, that stands for Gender and Agriculture Policies Assessment Tool. And we have used this tool to analyze over 300 policies related to agriculture in 40 countries. There are low and middle income countries. And we have seen that very often the gender issues are widely recognized, but they are not translated into concrete policy action. And we have estimated that only 18% of those 300 policies that we have analyzed had really a specific objective on gender equality and women's empowerment. Just to explain very clearly what is guiding our work. First of all, we are very committed in FAO to support countries with implementation of the recommendation of the CEDAW and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And our work is mainly guided by the Article 14 that deals with the rural women to guarantee equal rights to resources, services, and economic opportunities, and particularly also the General Recommendation 34 that really tries to reinforce this commitment by calling for the development and implementation of gender-responsive policies and inclusive processes. Also, we are very committed, of course, with the Beijing Platform for Action and the SDG 5, and in particular not only for development, but we have also big responsibility in the area related to sustainable peace, in line also with Agenda 2030. To what we consider based on
Ilaria, sorry to disturb you, but I think there's a slight problem with your microphone, because if you move your head or something that is like comes and goes, like the echo. So I don't know if there's like, yeah, just to be sure.
Okay, I try to stay still.
Perfect. Now it's perfect. Thank you.
Another big issue for us to try to transform these commitments into concrete action, we feel that you really need to develop concrete, strong coalition. And this implies to involve the governments, research institutions, the civil society, the private sector, and also intergovernmental organizations. This really implies that you support policy dialogue, you organize regional and international workshop, you support technical working group, you share data, and also see how this can be done. Some of our strategy that we keep suggesting is very important. First of all, you need to establish a dedicated team of gender experts that can provide advice on how to address this issue. An area where we are trying to work more and more is related to gender responsive budgeting and resource allocation, because very often, unless you put enough money for the gender work, nothing will really happen. Also, a lot of our areas of work are related to establishing a tracking system to measure what is the impact of our intervention on different people. Also generating evidence, and this implies to collect sex disaggregated data. Also, we feel that another very important area is related to investing in women leadership and representation in policy making, and of course, knowledge sharing and capacity development. So just to say what is it doing in the area of policy, we are collaborating with many regional partners, for example, with the African Union, with the economic communities of Central and West African countries, and many other groups to try to see what can be done to establish some regional gender strategies. Also, we support countries in trying to address this gender issue in their policy and legislative processes. As I said before, we are working with CEDAW to support countries in implementing the recommendation of CEDAW. For example, in a country like Guatemala, we help establishing a gender unit in the Ministry of Agriculture, or developing also a national gender strategy for women in agriculture. And also something that has been extremely important for us has been the work with parliamentarians. In particular, we are involved in the organization of some of these global parliamentary summit against hunger and malnutrition. And last year, in 2023 in Chile, we were able to approve the adoption of the Global Parliamentary Pact Against Hunger and Malnutrition that represents a very strong landmark commitment for mobilizing parliamentarians to advance inclusive agri-food system. Just to go back now to the question, to the issue related to why International Year of the Woman Farmer, we are extremely pleased that the United Nations General Assembly has decided to dedicate 2026 to the International Year of the Woman Farmer, and 123 countries have already endorsed this resolution for this year. And this is the result of many, many years of work where we have gathered evidence, dialogue, and advocacy. FAO, together with IFAD and the World Food Programme, are responsible for coordinating all the efforts for the implementation of the International Year of the Women Farmer. It's really a call for action to see and recognize the very crucial role the women have in agri-food system, from production and processing to trade, to sustain their family. And also we want through this year to increase the investment to see what can be done to close the gender gaps, because we know that women are really crucial agents of change in transforming agri-food system. And this implies that we really need to close all the gaps that still exist, in particular towards land, towards finance, towards technology and education, and also to decision-making. Let me also very quickly say that when we are talking about women farmer, we consider a very broad definition of women farmer, because we want to consider the women who are working in different capacity along the agri-food system. And this includes the farmers, the producer, the family and the smallholder farmer, people who are involved in beekeeping, in fishery, in forestry, also people who are formal and informal workers and rural entrepreneurs. And we really think it's essential that we recognize this diversity between women. It can also be indigenous women, refugee, it can be people with a disability. And we really need to consider what are the essential role that women play both in the formal and the informal work, where we know that very often women still have precarious working conditions, they have a heavier workload and unequal access to resources and services. So through this year, we hope that we can really raise awareness about the crucial role of women farmers. We can see that what kind of action can be done to close the gender gap, and also see how we can channel policy making and increase the investment, in particular towards land issue, financial aspects, education, and technical needs. And to conclude, I would just like to say that we consider that this year is extremely important because we want to see how we can strengthen the knowledge and the skills of women in leadership, negotiation, business planning, marketing, and so on, how we can develop policy that really can improve the access of women to services and resources. We think that we really need to invest much more in data and produce the evidence, and also see what can be done to increase the integration of women farmer in producer organization, and also facilitate the access to institution and agriculture advisory services. And this is what I really wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilaria. We have gone from the European to the global. Now we're going to back to...
I hope my voice was not cut again when I was trying to stay still.
No, it's fine, it's fine. I saw you were like very focused. I could see you were struggling a bit to be sure, but in the second half was perfect.
I was making effort not to move my head.
No problem, no problem. I know you have to do a bit of concentration, but also in both oral and physical terms in this occasion. So thank you very much. I think we're gonna move to the rural toolkit, which is one of the key things we believe, to practically implement some of the visions we're discussing here. So without further ado, Blanca is in the wings to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Serafín. Okay. Thank you so much, Elena, Ilaria, and Maura. I will now, alongside to the roadmap, I will present the Rural Gender Toolkit. Is an online policy toolkit with a format, as I said, as a demonstrator. The Rural Gender Toolkit is composed of interconnected tools designed to facilitate inclusive policy development, implementation, evaluation, and long-term monitoring in agricultural and rural development, always with a gender perspective. As the other deliverable on policy recommendations, including the roadmap, this toolkit also have a technical note. It means a full document explaining all the different tools and the data use, the methodology, and so on. But we also prepare an online format to help the user play with all the tools. Has been developed within the GRI project and brings together a set of practical resources designed to support policymakers, but also advisors, practitioners, in promoting gender equality and women-led innovation in rural areas. Among the different tools, the 7 tools, we are going to explore today in more detail the Rural Women Innovation Compass, but I want to call you to visit. I will now put a short tutorial to navigate in the tool. We have gender proofing templates for agriculture, benchmarking tools, the roadmap where you can display the different focus areas and actions, the benchmarking template, the foresight for women innovation impact in 2040, and a step-by-step checklist for policymakers And also, during the 3 years of the project, we submitted different feedback to EU consultations, and you can find there all materials that we submitted in terms of evidence. You can find here Rural Gender Toolkit, that I'm sure my colleagues are going to display on the chat, and also has been informed with the specific sections with the European Policy Forum, with 25 experts, including the AGRI, GRC, academics, and so on. I will quickly show the video. All the tools and all the displays that you can download, see tutorials, and explore in detail indicators proposed and so on. In terms of the Rural Women Innovation Compass, the core tool in this toolkit, is, as I said, a structured framework to explore the analysis, to explore and analyze data on women innovation in rural areas. To design this framework, we map different European monitoring systems, 15 monitoring systems, as you see. These include the CAP, Performance Monitoring and Evaluation Framework, the Farm Sustainability Data Network, the Cohesion Policy Framework, the Gender Equality Index, among others. They are all mandatory for different funds and so on. And we identify around 100 of indicators organized across 18 thematic domains. All these indicators, domains, and methodological specifications that you are going to include in the technical note and the demonstrator are reviewed through gender lens, either because they already include sex disaggregated data or because they are relevant for measuring progress toward gender equality. Particular attention was given to NAT3 territorial level, but also you are going to find specific indicators at NAT2 and or 1 levels. The compass is structured around these 9 key domains to capture the main dimensions. I'm not going to enter in them based on due to the time, but for each of these domains, you can see here, for each of these domains, the compass provides 4 sections that you can open and explore. The rural observatory domains linked to our, the relevant indicator set using all these data sets and Eurostat indicators, the proposed EU performance framework indicators for the next period. Then in July, Commission, as you know, publish the performance framework for the upcoming programming period, and we extracted all the indicators that could measure the domain, and also an analysis of the critical data gaps and evident needs. And here, just an example for one of the domains, employment and business. If you open the indicator set, you will find all of them and also the links. And always the reference to the full technical note for you to read. In terms of key findings, we observe fragmented but evolving landscape, disaggregated indicators in terms of gender and rural level exist, but their coverage remains uneven across sectors and territorial levels. The CAP performance monitoring and evaluation framework include only a few of them, mainly linked to generational renewal. The Farm Accountability Data Network, now to Sustainability Data Network, is one of the key sources for measuring gender at farm level. To support inclusive and evidence-based rural policy, we need to systematically include sex disaggregated data, harmonization across monitoring systems, and always availability at local rural level. I encourage to use all of them. I'm going to finish with this because we are going to now move to a short discussion with experts where we are going to reflect on some of the implications on the use of these kind of tools, but also the availability of data. I'm very pleased to welcome Elena Schubert again, but also Eleni Papadimitriou from the European Commission Joint Research Center, the GRC, and Zazie von Davier from the Thünen-Institut from Germany, specialist on farm economics. I will start with a question from Eleni because she's working at the GRC. She's the main person for understanding the barriers, the criticalities on having gender disaggregated data at rural level. Then, yeah, Eleni, based on your work at the GRC and your experience, why is gender disaggregated rural data so critical in some of the monitoring systems?
Thank you, Blanca. Thanks a lot for inviting me in this panel, which is very, very interesting and essential in this kind of discussions. And I really enjoy today's session in general. I think what we are saying here is very, very interesting and crucial. Indeed, I'm working many years with gender data, and I feel that struggle for many time now. The problem is that we don't have them, at least in the detail we need them. And it was already acknowledged in the discussion before that. So first and foremost, without gender disaggregated rural data, many of the inequalities simply remain invisible. When we rely on aggregated rural statistics, we often miss the different roles and the realities of women and also men in the rural economies. Across Europe, women contribute significantly to agriculture, to rural services, to the community life, yet they're still less likely to own land, to lead farms, to access certain resources and opportunities. And without gender disaggregated data, these gaps are difficult to detect and therefore difficult to address in rural policies. When you do not see something, you cannot even measure it, you cannot understand if it's there or not. And obviously you cannot solve it. My own research is a good example on this, on why this matters, as I'm looking at why young working age women are leaving rural areas. This phenomenon is very often discussed across Europe, but when you try to analyze it in detail and at more granular levels, such as NUTS3, you quickly encounter major data gaps, even in basic information, on employment patterns, on sectoral participation, on education pathways, on cultural norms, social factors, all these kind of factors that may affect rural women. And all these factors are often missing or not available with sufficient geographical detail. And that is why I'm very, very pleased that in the Rural Women Innovation Compass is been done a very big effort on gathering data in that granular level. Second, better data enables better policy. If we want rural policies, whether agricultural, regional, or social, to be effective, they need to be based on evidence about who actually benefits from them. Strengthening rural data systems, monitoring frameworks, and gender-sensitive indicators helps ensure that policies and investments truly respond to the realities on the ground. And this is precisely why initiatives such as Rural Women Innovation Compass and also the work that we are trying to do with the European Rural Observatory are very, very important and significant. And finally, gender disaggregated data help reveal structural barriers in rural development, such as unequal access to land, finance, employment opportunities, or decision making. And it also allows researchers and policymakers to analyze how gender interacts with other factors, factors like age, like migration background, geographical isolation. And in that sense, gender disaggregated rural data is not just about equality. It's about having a more accurate understanding of how rural economies and societies actually function. So to summarize, gender disaggregated data allows us to move from the assumptions that we may have to the evidence that we need. And from that evidence to be able to have more inclusive and more effective policies and development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eleni. We are going to now share on the chat also the link to the Rural Observatory, because I also invite, it's not specific for gender, it's for the rural level, but includes some indicators that we capture somehow in our compass, and also we know that you at the GRC are doing efforts in improving some of the data with this gender perspective, and this is really valuable for the upcoming period, and I'm sure. I want to now invite Zazie von Davier. I hope I'm pronouncing well your name. I know you are working on the Thünen-Institut on farm economics, and thinking from the perspective of farm level results, how can better data improve policy impact on women farm accountability in their activities?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to me. Thank you, Blanca. Yes, I would return to this question, whether better data could have a positive impact on women in rural areas and in agriculture. I can only answer this question from the perspective of women in agriculture and rural areas in Germany. First of all, there are already some gender-specific data available, but there's a lack in analyzing them, in interpreting them. At our institute, we've been evaluating rural development programs for many, many years. We have access to funding data of each beneficiary or recipient of these programs in LEADER, in the diversification funding, and in agriculture investment funding. However, we really lack, coming back also to farm income, we have no data on the gender of the recipients of the first pillar of the common agricultural policy. So it would be particularly interesting for us to find out how income support for farmers is distributed between women and men. Because, as said before, it's a huge budget which should be attributed efficiently and targeting also gender equality. What is missing for us? Both the statistical offices in Germany and the scientific community, they have a lack in the resources to analyze, interpret, and prepare the many existing data for decision makers. From a scientific point of view, we can therefore only conclude that the life reality of women in rural areas and agriculture differs substantially from those of men. This includes, for example, deficits in infrastructure, hobbies, the use of rural areas, the labor market, voluntary and municipal engagement, and especially in agriculture, there's a lot of structural barriers to women, as said by Maura and Elena before. And these barriers can be made only visible by data, as Eleni said.
Thank you so much, Zazie. I'm going to give the floor to Elena due to the timing. You will, exploring the technical notes for the compass, you will see all this information or harmonization, as I said, of the frameworks, how to, for example, the data that are reported at the CAP RTPs before and now strategic plans from direct payments, rural development, how this can be integrated in the other monitoring systems. Sometimes the duration of the year, the monitoring for more than 10 years that allows to have some tendencies to understand what is happening, how to design interventions, what is the impact, the real result of some of the intervention, even if it's direct payment or not, to understand the tendencies, but also the harmonization between the systems. And then going to the future, how to use what we have in the best way. And I would like to ask Elena Schubert what will make these tools and the compass, for example, easier to apply in the next programming period, how we can ensure this support for designing, implementing, and even monitoring, evaluating the next period.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Blanca, and thanks to Eleni and Zazie. I hope that Zazie, is that the right pronunciation? Yeah, okay. For your interventions. I really have to congratulate, for example, Joint Research Center for this rural observatory work on statistics. I am a frequent client of this website and of these indicators, and I have to say this is so important, the indicators and data. As you know, we are now in the process of preparing CAP recommendations. And and we all in DG AGRI are relying on the data, because if you don't have data, you cannot first of all not see the baseline situation, and then if you prepare the policies, then you should measure how well did you do according to comparing to where you started. And if you don't have it, then it's very difficult. Zazie, on the point that you raised about the amount of CAP support that goes to women, I can tell you that for the current programming period, we have strengthened the collection of data disaggregated by gender. We are operating per category: men, women, non-binary people, and prefer not to say. So for this current programming period, you would not have a problem to see how much money goes to women. For the future, as I have said, and already my colleagues today mentioned, we are going to have gender equality under performance regulation as a horizontal principle. That means we will have a gender budgeting methodology that I have already referred to with 3 scores, 0, 1, 2. And so this will be a real step forward in terms of measuring the amount of EU support that is going to women, and then we can see how well we are doing. So this is already very, very important, the data collection and seeing where we are heading. I would like to say that when we talk about gender equality, and when we look at the data that Eurostat is preparing for us, of course, the member states are delivering and feeding into the Eurostat that they can do it, including Germany, and your institute, Zazie, I can imagine, knows very well. I don't know how well you have data disaggregation per Bundesländer. If you look at below the sub-federal level and regional level and local level, we can have a bilateral discussion, but sometimes it's very difficult to compare the regions and local realities across each other, which is very important when we talk about rural statistics and definition of what is rural. In fact, this is already where we start. So we have certain, and you know it better than me, that there are always some constraints about that. We also need data when it comes to the European semester. We are working also in the European semester. I don't know if you have ever heard about that. It's an open coordination method that is coordinating the macroeconomic policies in the Commission. And we are also concerned by this exercise. And here, this is very much about data-driven. This is data-driven process. And for example, now we are preparing for the current semester, European semester round, where we also analyze the situation in rural areas, and we also analyze the situation of, for example, social protection, very relevant when it comes to farmers, how women farmers are covered by social protection on farms compared to men. Sometimes you have just one pension per farm. I think this is the case in Germany. And then how far are women affected by old age poverty, although they have been working on farm all life. And this is something where we need to strengthen data collection, for example, in the area of social protection, where I see the need. And this is obviously something that is at the level of member states, at national competence. But this is where I see need. Where I go, for example, to Eurostat, I will not find the data on the pension coverage for farmers, for women farmers, for the spouses. This is where I really see the need that we need to strengthen the data, because social protection is an issue for farmers. They are self-employed workers. They are not covered to such an extent as regular workers. And here, this is the territory where, for example, Ireland, I don't know if Maura is still listening, has done a lot on the research, but many member states, we miss this information. So this is something where I see data need when we think about the future, right? And about the security, social security also for farmers and their spouses and women working on farms and farm employees and etc. But what I would like to say is that where I struggle is we have very good data in the area of employment, of activity rates. We have very good data at risk of poverty or social exclusion. We have data on access to training, access to early school leavers, tertiary education, attainment, etc. But where I struggle is, and how to measure, is the data on the soft phenomena, like, for example, this gender stereotyping. For example, access to banks. I would like to have more data on access to banks, access to financial support for women. We have from the European Investment Bank data on how much support women received who are active in agriculture and agriculture-related field. But I would like to have more data from national levels when it comes to access to bank. So how many women asked for help, for finance, and how many women at the end were recipients of this help. Maura has at the beginning referred to this phenomenon of women being declined financial support and credit. And here I would like to have more data, really systematic data collection, if possible. But I mean, I know it's very difficult on women. So here we have to rely on anecdotal evidence. And I think this is such an important sector, access to finance, and yet the data is missing. So this is where I see. So from my point of view, we would need to have data on access to social protection and also access to finance for women entrepreneurs. And then, of course, when it comes to the social barriers, for example, stereotyping, for example, mindset, how do we measure these phenomena, which are extremely important for the policies, but it is very difficult to measure, right? So this is a challenge that we have been already discussing, but I always keep thinking about how we could go about that. And the last point that I would like to mention is that in terms of access to resources, we have very good data already under Rural Observatory to access to some services, right? But we do not have also data to access to all services, social support services, including long-term care, including access to education, schools, access to broadband. I think we have some data to access to essential services, but social support services data, this is still missing, and perhaps it would be a good idea for the future to think about the improvement of this. And here I will stop. I don't know if Blanca or some of you have more questions, or you have been exhaustive enough, because I have talked already so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena, Eleni, and Zazie. We need to move forward to the RUWI award, but just to say that our idea is continuous improving the gender toolkit. We are going to maintain all links available. If any change, we have developed the system to give alarms in case of Eurostat changes any links to make the compass fully operability. And then any improvement, any doubt of how to make use of it, please, you can write us. And also in the technical note, you will find some suggestions for case studies. As Elena mentioned, there are some data that we can only learn about tendencies through specific case studies, and then we also make suggestions about it. And then now I give the floor to Serafín for the final block of the RUWI award.
Thank you, Blanca. I'm glad that we have been able to cover this, but I mean, also my apologies to some other colleagues, which all this discussion could have been is a bit complex inevitably. So let's conclude the session with actually coming from the beginning, the real lives of people on the ground. And for that, I'm very pleased to have an introduction and a dialogue, and expressing my apologies to the winners and the winner and finalists of the Rural Women Innovation Award, because they've been patiently waiting for us to go through the technical things, to actually talk something which is quite important. Is about talking real evidence from real experience, who actually people who's continuously living in the countryside and has to experience that in this is the tangible challenges in a very personal way. So we were very pleased we were asked by the project to actually lead this forum, the RUWI award. We had very little time to put it together because of a number of programming issues that could only start. We were only asked to start this relatively short notice just before the summer of last year. And despite of the tight schedule, we achieved 64 very relevant applications. I'm very pleased. I was not involved in the actual decision making, but I was certainly involved in ensuring that the methodology was the best state of the art we could have, and certainly legally, procedurally safe. And we had like a very, very strong process of selection led at the finalists that you're going to meet today, which is 64 applications from all over Europe. And the idea is to identify good practices of empowering rural women by recognizing and giving due visibility to women-centered innovative projects in agricultural areas, which is a mouthful to say people who lead the lives in rural areas and are able to make sure that gender is not necessarily disadvantages. It can be an opportunity, but it's something that is not going to stop them in any way to actually drive the ambitious life they want to live in rural areas. So as I say, 64 applications, it's a thorough process. We have 9 finalists, and then the president and another member of the AEIDL board do the selection. We didn't have anything to do with that. It was like based on merits, and I'm very pleased that some of them are with us today. Marta Cortegano, Jasminka Schubert, Lembeke, Dimitra Papaioannou, and Paolo Echenique. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the same question to all of you, which is, what is your experience in your case, the best practice you are bringing, and what do you think is the added value of the best practice you put forward to the RUWI award, as you have been a finalist. Let me start, and then, of course, any barrier, any complication that you think bringing your project forward has experience. Insisting on apologies for the delay in the agenda, I would like to start with Marta Cortegano from Terra Sintropica, who is leader of a project on regenerative agriculture and community-led development. So without further ado, Marta, the floor is yours.
Hi. So hello to everybody, and thank you for the invitation, and I really enjoyed the first part and to learn a lot with all of you. So I come from Portugal, from the South Portugal, rural South Portugal, and to explain our initiative, I really must explain the context. We are in a very depopulated area. We have like 4.8 inhabitants per square kilometers in Mértola, Alentejo, and is also a place quite affected by desertification, by soil degradation, aridity, and we are in the only place in Portugal that is already a semi-arid area. So these difficulties, of course, had conducted to extreme land abandonment, migration, and so I went to Mértola in 2004. And we were already in the place to think, are we condemned to this? Could we do something different? Can we do something better? Because there was a lot of funds coming to these kind of regions, but our feeling was that we were not getting better. We were always getting worse. So it was not about the quantity of money, but maybe about what we are doing and the quality of our work. So we start to dream with the community about new possibilities, and this to think about two things: technical knowledge, but technical knowledge based or in a better understanding of how nature works, how we came to this point in the terms of land degradation. But at the same time, other possibility that is to shift paradigm and mindset, that many of our problems were not just about technical solutions, but about the way that we were working together or not working together, not collaborating between each other. So this came to a journey about looking for solutions, and we start to look about the regenerative agriculture approach, like syntropic farming, holistic management, the key line systems and others, and to work together to look for these kind of solutions, but also turning to a shift of regenerative development approach. So how can we collaborate better to improve our capacities and to understand that in a place like that, it's not only about sustainability, it's really about regenerating what we have. This conducted to development of Terra Sintropica, that is an association, a non-profit association that linked many people from the local community. And so we transformed, because me and my husband, we were farmers, and we transformed our farm in a demonstration center, a living lab for agroecology and regeneration. That nowadays we have a CSA, and we also put our products in our own restaurant. This is a farm to fork restaurant. It started to be vegan, but nowadays we also have the option of regenerative meat for the ones who also want the meat. We developed the local food net, a food system, and we have our own food hub that is a PREC, and also to develop a lot of activities that could attract people and newcomers, volunteers, students, but also refugees to this place. So I think all the point here was the possibility to change the narrative. And so for this space not to be a space of land abandonment, but that Mértola can be a laboratory for the future, for the agroecological transition and climate change. And it's not that we change the land abandonment or the migration, is that we can look for this space as a space of flows, that if we are always doing new experience, innovation, trials, that we can attract, for instance, a lot of students, a lot of volunteers. And so the space is always occupied by someone. And we have centuries and centuries of occupation in Mértola, but now these people come to regenerate and not to explore, to bring something and give good input to the land. So this is really the difference and in our approach, and I think what we could bring.
Thank you, Marta. I would like to give the floor to Jasminka, and my apologies because Slavic spelling comprehension are always difficult. Grskovic from Poland, family farm Tochoraj, if I'm not mistaken, is an organic farmer innovating with blue sheep wool products. So without further ado, Jasminka, the floor is yours.
Hello to everyone. I'm very sorry my English is not very well, but I will tell you a few words for our business. Me and my husband and 4 children have a farm with an olive tree and a vineyard, and also we have a sheep. And I want to use the wool, and I start use the wool before 7 years, and I made handmade dryer balls for discarded wool, and wool dried balls short time in the dryer. And I have a brand Blue Sheep you have seen on Instagram. We want to have a little more big farm, and we want to make some center for teach young people. Also, I work in a kindergarten, and I including the wool in kindergarten with the children, and we made something for play and with wool. And then also make a workshop in the olive tree garden.
Thank you very much. I think your English is much better than my Polish. Sadly, my Polish reading. So my apologies for misnaming your surname. May I introduce closer to where I am in Brussels to Lembeke from Belgium about farm. That's I should know because I should know some Dutch as I'm living here for a while. Farm for Agravrouwen, the French farms for agrarian women, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she's a champion of women farmers' visibility and empowerment, and she develops initiatives on well-being and entrepreneurship and advocacy for rural women. So maybe you'd like to take the floor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leen. I want to thank you for the invitation. My initiative is called Farm voor Agravrouwen. It's Dutch. And we bring together a network of about 6,000 women in agriculture and horticulture in Flanders in Belgium. Our roots go back more than 1 century to the historic Boerinnenbond. It's very known in Belgium. But today we are a very modern movement that focuses on empowerment, visibility, and innovation for women in farming. What we do is quite simple, but it's very powerful. We strengthen, connect, and make women in agriculture more visible. We try to support them in their professional, but also in their personal development through training, networking, and a strong community where they can share experiences and learn from one another. So it's peer-to-peer learning. We also work actively on policy advocacy to ensure that the voices of the farming woman are heard in decision-making spaces where they are still too often underrepresented. We heard it already today. A very important part of our work is a short chain support center. Through this center, we guide women in building sustainable local food systems, from developing products and business models to navigating markets and regulations. We see that it helps women to create resilient short chain businesses that are good for their families, for the communities, and for the climate. So I can conclude that Farm voor Agravrouwen is much more than a network. We are truly a movement that tries to inspire, to innovate, and to connect women who are shaping the future of agriculture today. So that's what we are doing. We also have a page on Instagram. I will also share it in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As you can see, we have very diverse geographical but also sectoral coverage, because now we move to Greece, to Dimitra Papagiannidou, sorry, who represent the Eco Museum Zagori, which my Greek friends save me tell me that it's one of the most beautiful parts of Greece, and certainly northeastern Greece. So very much welcome to have your views on your project. She's an environmental science promoting ecotourism, biodiversity conservation, and heritage in that part of Greece. So Dimitra, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much. Yes, I am Dimitra. I am an environmentalist, and I'm here, and I'm part of Eco Museum Zagori, which I'm also representing today. We are a social cooperative enterprise based in northwest Greece, as you mentioned, in Zagori, which is a mountain region. Our Eco Museum is not a traditional museum building like most might imagine, but instead we are a living network, let's say. We try to connect people and nature, local knowledge, cultural heritage. And our goal is to support the rural development by empowering the local community. We have a lot of different activities like community storytelling, heritage mapping, cultural experiences, and we try to, let's say, create opportunities for residents, the not so many residents that still are staying in Zagori, and so that they can become active and ambassadors, if we could say, of this area. We work a lot as a thematic with the practice of transhuman livestock farming. So we have we create some participatory workshops, exhibitions, and video portraits, especially to promote the role of women that play in this traditional practice. And in this way, we try to co-create the space and time where these women can share their stories, their knowledge, their skills, etc. So this way, we try to bring the visibility to these women and their very vital role that they play in this practice, livestock farming, which is also often seen as a male-dominated sector, even though women play a really crucial role. Also in preservation of the local knowledge and the cultural heritage and the natural landscape. But unfortunately, they're often undervalued or just invisible. So through these activities, we try to bring their voices in the front and create the space that they can be heard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now but not least, apology because the last speaker is always like has the way the most, but definitely one of the ones that has more to say. As a RUWI winner, Paula Echenique from Grskovic in Spain, in Zamora. She is the founder of rather innovative for that part of the world circular economy aquaculture model that she will probably discuss. And she's being awarded the RUWI award, not because the competition, as you can see, was very good, but we had decision was done, and that was the selection panel. So maybe without further ado, Paula, you can just highlight why you think your project deserves the award. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. First of all, shortly, please excuse me my English. My husband Fabian is here with me today and help if necessary. It's an honor to be granted this space, sharing my experience. My name is Paula Echenique Fernandez. I was born in Argentina. I'm 52 years old, and I am mother of an 11-year-old son, Ulises. I am speaking to you from Carbellino de Sayago, a very small Spanish village of 200 inhabitants in the province of Zamora. My project is Grenuserie, starting more than 11 years ago with the goal of becoming Europe's first sustainable intensive frog farming model. It was designed by and for women. From the very beginning, we invested heavily in research and development, and today we are working hard to become a rural living lab. Through Grenuserie, we bring real value to our community. We not only create direct employment for women, but we also aim to build future network of rural entrepreneurship. We have proven that even in deep rural isolation, it is possible to apply the circular economy, biotechnology, and research for the food, cosmetic, and medical sectors. Regarding the barriers, we face a lot of huge challenges. Firstly, the financial one, securing private investment in isolated rural areas is extremely difficult. Also, a strong gender prejudice opposing high-tech equality in a village of 200 people, led by a woman, was something very hard for people to believe. And also, as a mother, balancing family reconciliation and work-life balance while building a demanding biotech project from scratch was a monumental test. And third, the bureaucracy barrier to start and continue by my business. We are creating our own industry, helping people stay in rural areas and building a real future in one of the most depopulated regions of Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was just checking. I'm going to leave the floor to Blanca so she can actually take some proceedings and also any additional question, maybe the barrier issue that we left for the end. So I'll leave slide for you to go on. Thank you very much, Blanca.
Thank you, Serafín. I'm aware of timing, but just to complement what Paula mentioned, if Marta, Jasminka, Lynn, or Dimitra wants to add any specific gender sensitive barrier, because we have been some of your initiatives are supporting rural development. Some of you share with other members, with colleagues, with your husbands. But if there is some specific barrier with the perspective of gender that you want to highlight, because this is important for us to later on, and also with people from the AGRI and other institutions to identify these specific ones to be able to reflect in public policies in the upcoming programming period. Please jump in. Maybe Lynn, you unmute yourself. Yes, please.
Yes, maybe it's not new. It's already taught today, but we see a number of structural and gender-specific barriers that limit the opportunities of women in farming. A very important one is the underrepresentation in decision-making and governance. And the persistent gender stereotype often casts them in the role of supporting spouse rather than entrepreneur or leader. So that it's what we are facing a lot. And on the top of that, we see that women frequently deal with time constraints, limited mobility, and lack of childcare and rural services. And therefore, we have the pressure on social isolation and mental load. Especially mental load is we see it very often today, and that's a real problem for women, especially for women, also for the men we see. So there are several barriers and things we have to work on.
Thank you, Lynn. And then Marta, Jasminka, Dimitra, do you want to add? Yeah, please, Marta.
Yes, in our case, actually, we felt that we at some time we really had to deal with a problem that was male ego. Is that the fact that suddenly we had a project that were mainly being led by women. 3 women were in the leading position of this process. That was a community process, but all of the local institutions were led by men. And for some of them, that was a problem. Who are these women now that thinking that know how to change the paradigm in agriculture or in local development, or they don't know, and so they really try to discredit. And actually, they caused some blockades on the process at the local, but sometimes with national repercussions, because the chain of power sometimes is quite well linked, and it was really easy to try to discredit what we were doing. And this is something that we had to deal from the beginning until now. And our solution for that, it was really to strengthen our partnership, to have, for instance, to work quite close with the local action group that have a very good reputation between the farmers, to work with the local authorities and the local associations associations of municipalities, and also to bring academy and research to really give a strength of what we are doing, to monitoring the results, to do all of this. The other important thing was also to have good facilitation process and to hold secure spaces. And when we say hold secure spaces, is that we don't feel intimidated about what we were doing, but also that traditional farmers also felt quite welcome, so that everybody could be in the space and understand that we can all collaborate together, and no one is trying to attack no one. We really try to have something different, new, innovative. And yes, maybe sometimes we are going to fail, and that's okay. We are just going to learn with it and do it better and fail better in the future. That was quite important in our process. And in our case, we really felt the male ego problem in the process.
Thank you so much, Marta.
I agree with everything what Marta and Lynn say. I live on the small island in Croatia, and I have the same problem, and we're very difficult to be entrepreneur on the small island. But thank you God for internet and for all techniques. And that's helped us to many time. And also what helped to me, and we have a few women who have a social activity we call Women for Island. We help. I help him. They help to me, and that works good, very well.
Thank you, Jasminka. Any final words, Dimitra, you want to add?
I agree, of course, with everything. As I mentioned, for us, there is several challenges in general, but of course, I agree. One of the main, and as I mentioned before, one of the main challenges is that, especially in sectors like livestock farming that we work mostly, and this male-dominated sector, women are unseen, invisible, and of course, funding programs is also a constant challenge. It's important on the one hand to support rural activities, but it's very important to create spaces for women to create, to hurt, to feel safe, and to feel that they can move forward with support. And also for us, what helped us overcome this is our personal contact, being there on the field, and try at the same time to create a bigger network, not only inside Greece, but with European projects outside, and with bigger institutions like local universities, for example. So yes, that was some small thing I would like to add.
Thank you so much, Dimitra, and all of you for your time. I'm sure it will not be the last time that we will have you in another session, because we want to know more about your all your challenges, how you overcome solutions that are adaptive and changing every day. I hope we will have more time to share, to know more about the different RUWI applicants, because as Serafín said, we received more than 60 applications. Then they are brave women entrepreneurs around all Europe. And yeah, we have heard about all the session today, the funding programs, the access to them, the decision-making roles and representative, the responsibilities of caring, family responsibilities that are as gender-specific barrier, mobility, mental health, social isolation, and all the stereotypes and norms and that make a constraint for women innovation. As a part of solutions, the partnership with local action group, with different networks, with all these even like local administration specific roles for your projects. As I said, we will for sure organize more sessions with you. Again, thank you so much for your time. Please, if you have any question, any suggestion for further work on this topic, you can write directly to me, to Serafín. We are going to keep, let's say, the Rural Gender Toolkit alive, because we want to incorporate all changes that will come soon, be definitive in the performance framework. We are open for future initiatives. And also, just a quick wish. Please join the Rural Path community group on women in rural areas, but also apply to the Women in Agricultural platform that has been published by the Commission. They are 2 spaces, and there are more spaces. As much as we are present, we have these spaces alive. This topic will continue in the agenda, in the political agenda. We are in difficult moments, in delicate moments, for the narratives that we are listening, for human rights in general, but for sure for gender rights. Then these platforms are perfect spaces for us to be connected, to share experience at all levels, at practitioner level, at advisor level, at decision maker. We know today we have different representatives from ministries. Then stay on these platforms and keep in touch. And with this, I close. Thank you so much. Also to my colleagues of ELIFs organizing today, and to Julen, to Serafín, and for sure all the speakers that dedicate the morning to us.